Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for downloading episode 150 of We Got This with Mark and Hal. We did it, everybody. We made it to 150 episodes. Jeez, I'm blown away. And Mark and I both want to thank every single one of you that's downloaded the show, that's left a review on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate it. We couldn't do the show without you, and it wouldn't be growing the way it is without you either. And hey, how about we thank you in person? So if you're in the Bay Area this weekend, on Sunday, the 14th of January, Mark and I are doing We Got This live. We are in a double bill with Craigslist podcast. If you don't listen to Craigslist, you have to. It's Craig and Carla Kakowski going through Craig's top 100 movies of all time. I've been on the show. Mark's been on the show. My wife Jennifer has been on the show. It is awesome. They have Busy Phillips as a live guest, our friend from the Work Juice Players, and we have Cameron Esposito and Rhea Butcher. We are so excited. This is Sunday, the 14th of January, and Mark and I are going to be all over that weekend. We're doing the Work Juice Players improv show Saturday night. We've got a show in the morning of the 14th with Mike Furman. That's a kid's show if you have little ones. Find information on everything at sfsketchfest.com. But for now, please enjoy episode 150 of We Got This with Mark and Hal.
Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all, best Batman villain.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcasts should have a theme song. Podcasts should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
Well, we've done it, Mark.
What have we done, Hal?
We've made it to LA Comic-Con without actually going into the Comic-Con.
Oh, man. It is. I feel like I'm starting to get con fatigue.
Already?
Yeah.
We've been here for like a half an hour.
Yeah, I know, but man, when you see a half Jack Sparrow, half Kylo Ren, and spend the rest of your walk trying to figure out what the pun name for that is, or the portmanteau that creates that name, like I still have no idea what it would be. So you know what we should do? We should just relax in a hotel suite with friend of the show and returning guest
Simon Grimm.
Hey, last time I was here as Simon Gotcha. Now I legally can't use that name. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, they'll sue my ass. They will.
Well, Simon Grimm is here with us today.
That's right.
I like the way you jumped in, Hal.
I did because
you knew I was going to say Simon Gotch.
You had Gotch on your lips.
I did. Oh, do I have Gotch on my lips?
Yeah, you do.
And
my Gotch is on my lips. My Gotch is on my lips.
And that's how I got back on the show.
That's it. Welcome back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I get to come back and talk about one of my favorite subjects with two of my favorite people.
There we go. Yeah, we're here to talk about Batman, but more specifically his Rogues Gallery. This was suggested by the father-daughter team of Peter and Sherilyn Brown.
Hello, the Browns.
Who are based in New Jersey, come to a lot of the Thrilling shows when we're in New York.
Yeah.
And they want to know this, but this has been asked a bunch of times. And you are, not only an expert in villainy, but you're a huge comic book fan and almost among the three of us, you're the historian of this group.
I know a bit. I know a few things. I've talked to guys.
So we're almost, Batman is now 78 years old.
Yes.
The concept.
He looks good.
Not Bruce Wayne.
Right.
Oh, they actually in Lego Batman, they make a joke about that he's been fighting crime for over 70 years. And they make the joke like, hey, he looks great.
Yeah. He does. He made that. I think it's because he fights such a wide variety of villains.
He does CrossFit.
CrossFit.
He does CrossFit and he eats a paleo diet. That's the key. It's paleo diet, CrossFit, man.
And putting that gun down. That year one when he used to carry a machine gun around.
Yeah.
Well, he fought a vampire.
What hasn't he done? Did he ever meet the Brooklyn Gorilla?
I don't know. Who's the Brooklyn Gorilla?
Isn't there a movie? There's a movie called Bela Lugosi Meets the Brooklyn Gorilla.
Yeah, it starred these guys who were literally a knockoff Abbott and Costello. Like that was their actual bit. Is they were Abbott and Costello impersonators who started doing their own deal.
Wow.
So it was meant to.
So yeah, Abbott and Costello could go see all the Universal properties, but these guys are like, who can we get? Well, we can't get Dracula. We got the Brooklyn Gorilla.
It's an insane. I would put it on par with like the House of the Long Shadows, which if you're not familiar with, was Canon Films did a movie where they wanted to have like Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. And it's like these guys are all dead. They're like, okay, we'll get Vincent Price and Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
That's a good trio.
It's a good trio.
It's an epic horror trio.
But it was a PG movie, and it actually came off more as a comedy.
Yeah.
And it was meant to be a horror film.
It sounds like Boy Hocus Pocus.
Kind of. Unrelated, I watched House 2, which the second story.
Yes.
2 words. Puppy worm.
Puppy worm?
I don't know House 2.
Yeah.
That's a great title, though, I have to say. The second story is a great title.
Oh, it's a great story. It was actually, I hadn't watched the movie in probably 20 years. Mm-hmm. But I rewatched the first one, which I didn't realize William Catt at the time. Obviously, when I'm a kid watching it, I didn't know, it's Greatest American Hero. It's kind of funny. And Richard Mole. So we can see Richard Mole. We can see Bull from Night Court versus
Bull Shannon.
Shannon.
One of the great television characters.
He is 6'8". Did you realize? He's legitimately a big man.
He's huge. I remember
he's also fantastic on that show.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's great in those movies. But isn't George Wendt also in the House movies?
Yeah, no. And fun fact, George Wendt is in House. Guess who's in House 2?
George Wendt Jr.
John Ratzenberger?
John Ratzenberger.
Yes.
I feel like there was a House 3. Woody would have been in it. Actually, no, there was a House 3. Now I need to see if Woody's in it. I think there was part 5.
Yeah.
It's going to be Rhea Perlman.
They called it White Man Can't Jump. That was
it was a retooling.
Yeah.
That happens sometimes. What was it? From Dusk Till Dawn was supposed to be a Tales from the Crypt movie.
Really?
Yeah, I'd heard that. I loved that movie because I did not see anything leading up to it to lead me to think that there were vampires involved. And when that moment happens halfway through the movie, you're watching this crime caper and then Selma Hayek turns into a vampire. Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen this 20-year-old movie.
You would be surprised how much people get mad about this stuff. To me, if a movie's good, it's good. Yeah. Spoilers don't ruin it. Mm-hmm. I'll sometimes read ahead in a book or I'll watch the ending of a movie.
Right.
I watched the ending of High Tension, which, is one big twist. I knew it going in. And it just raised more questions than anything. It's one of those things where continuity starts to become an issue because you're like, oh, you have this twist. It's I knew the twist going in, so I know this scene made no sense.
Wait, so you watched the end of the movie first? Was it on a loop?
I read a review of it. I like to watch a lot of film reviews and stuff on YouTube. Mm-hmm. A lot of the, Nostalgia Critic, Angry Video Game Nerd does some movie reviews. Mm-hmm. Who's another one? Cinema Snob. Brandon Tenold, actually, I did a spot on his show, where he reviewed, Life Force. And the funny thing is he sends me the script for it to record a little video, and I had no idea what movie it was for. He didn't tell me. So I just read the dialogue and did it. And, so I do the review, or I do the little break-in during his review, and I had no idea it was for, I actually know Life Force, so it's Toby Hooper, great.
There you go. I don't know Life. I'm not familiar with Life Force.
It is insane. It actually has Sir Patrick Stewart's first on-screen kiss.
Wow.
It's with another dude.
Sure.
Of course it is.
Oh yeah.
Why not?
No,
Toby Hooper's amazing.
But also Patrick Stewart was 55 when he did the movie. It's weird. Patrick Stewart might be a vampire legitimately because he's looked the same his entire career. Go back and watch Dune.
I'm pretty sure Patrick Stewart was born in New Orleans in 1831.
Oh yeah.
That's right. There are photographs of him in every speakeasy all over the South.
Oh, you want an even crazier theory?
Yeah.
Okay. So I believe it was 2 years ago, John Hurt died from cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just lost Harry Dean Stanton.
Yes.
You think they're the same guy?
John Hurt is the first man to die an alien. Harry Dean Stanton is the second.
Ooh.
There's a murderer on the loose.
Wait a minute.
I think we've got
old age.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, I was gonna say I think we've got a really slow working Final Destination scenario going on with Alien.
Because it could have happened.
You know what? If I'm ever in a Final Destination, if Death is listening, I want you to know, Death, if I'm ever in a Final Destination situation, I want my death to be at 91 after a long and illustrious career.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a step further and say, Death, you can just take one off of me and just go, well, that guy got away. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna concentrate on the next people.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Oh no, someone tried to claim that it was actually my theory's false because Bill Paxton died too. But I said Bill Paxton was in Terminator though.
That's
and
true.
He's the first guy to die in Terminator.
Is he the first? Does he get killed in the bar? Is he the guy in the?
No, the guy in the bar, because that's not the first guy that's in Terminator 2. In Terminator, Schwarzenegger goes and sees the guys in the park, the punks, and sure enough, the first one he sees is Bill Paxton, and he kills him. Wow. He punches a hole in his chest.
Oh my God. I haven't watched Terminator in years.
It is the original Terminator?
Yeah. And I could even go into my theory about how John Connor doesn't exist. But Okay.
For our listeners out there, what you can't tell about this Marriott hotel room is that all over the walls are pictures and red thread connecting all sorts of movie characters.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, Pepe Silvia doesn't exist. It's
Oh my God. Follow the money, right?
Oh yeah.
Always follow the money. I just assume that's my blanket statement for anything that could be.
To understand this, just because I know we've got to get to the actual subject of the show, but just
Do we? Who knows?
Look.
To throw this theory out there.
Okay.
Robots can, the whole thing people always say about Terminators, why don't they just send like 30 Terminators back, or why couldn't they find the right Sarah Connor? And my theory is, and I'm not the only one to have this theory, this is actually a pretty popular thing on the internet, because when I started thinking about it, I looked it up and I was like, oh, other people think this too. The only way to beat the robots was to outthink them, to think in a fashion they can't. So, Kyle Reese wasn't sent back to impregnate Sarah, because that's a lot of steps you're guessing. Mm-hmm. That first and foremost, the guy who grew up in a nuclear wasteland could even conceive a child. That in the limited time seriously.
It's true. Yeah, he's irradiated down there.
In the limited time they're going to be together, they're going to actually copulate. That she might have any interest in. There are a lot of things that have to go right for this to work. But
to pick one person from history and say, go have sex with them. That's an alignment.
But here's the thing. This is where it gets weird. Terminator 2 takes place 7 years after Terminator. There's no indication that 1991 and 1984, that there's anything other than the actual years the films are set in.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But John is like 15 or 14 in the second movie, which means he's aged 7 additional years. Now, that means he technically can't be whatever Sarah's pregnant with at the end of the original Terminator, because that kid would only be 7 years old. And you can say, from an artistic storytelling standpoint, it's like, no, bull. That's a cop out.
Right.
I think what Kyle Reese was really sent back to give was the story of John Connor, and whoever's in charge of the resistance is John Connor. He's the Dread Pirate Roberts.
I like that. Yeah, that's good.
I just assumed that it was, we needed 18 to look younger, and Eddie Furlong, we made him look as young as we can, and we could get him for 14 hours a day of work instead of, if there was a kid in the movie, you could get him for 2 hours a day.
Oh yeah, but and even then you could say, it's a less interesting story. But it's like, then you could have just set it a few years farther ahead in the future.
That's true. Yeah.
There's nothing to stop that. But that was my whole. That's why I think the idea may have, or the whole subtext is, it's like the Dread Pirate Roberts. You're afraid of the idea of the guy. The guy doesn't matter. The guy's irrelevant. It's the story behind him. If anyone here has played Metal Gear Solid 5, that's like the big reveal at the end of the game. It's like, it's not about the guy, it's about the story. The story is bigger than the guy.
Right.
Well, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez, this is
now we're spoiling all kinds of things.
Let me bring us back to Batman.
Hey, if you want a big spoiler, Bane breaks Han Solo's back. See, that's two spoilers mixed together. So
there it is. And he did it first.
He did it first, yeah.
Han Solo did not break his back first. I was thinking about this recently for Batman versus Superman. Mm-hmm. Which is not what we're talking about here. We've already settled.
So is Superman technically a Batman villain now?
In Batman vs. Superman, they're all villains to me, the person who paid money to go see it in the theater. But I was thinking that Superman is a hero who's defined by his powers and his identity. Mm-hmm. And as much as Batman, that's what makes him cool, is all of the things he can do. He certainly has a great rogues gallery of his own. But Batman, as cool as he is, he's made way better and elevated by the quality of villains that he faces. Although not all of them are great, but he has at least 5 or 6 and more that you could argue for the best villain that he has. Do you agree with that?
Probably. I mean, and even then, the odd thing with his villains is that they're almost caused by him.
Yes.
That it's like he's meant to be the cure, and all he does is create more trauma.
Yeah.
In the Arkham City video game, there's actually a line of dialogue from Hugo Strange where it's something along the lines of, did you ever consider that you're the reason all these creatures are here? You changed the game. Before you, we didn't put on costumes. We weren't these crazy monsters. We were just guys. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of how Batman's presence it's like the first carjacking. As soon as someone goes, oh, we can do that? Right. Now everyone does it. It's like, I can put on a crazy costume and build a giant death laser?
That's, looking at Batman, his villains, they're for the most part human.
Yes and no. Joker is the only one who's definitely human, but even then that's been argued in certain iterations of the comic. They argue whether or not he's actually a human being.
Right.
then you see someone like Killer Croc. It's like, well, he's kind of a mutant. He's not necessarily human.
Right.
Poison Ivy, once again, not exactly human. Riddler's human. Riddler's the only one who's like straight up human. Penguin.
They're all
The original
with
Penguin,
little tweaks. It
Yeah.
feels like. Yeah, Penguin.
I don't know if you guys are familiar. I may have mentioned this last time. There's a musical called Holy Musical Batman. It was done by a theater troupe in Chicago called Star Kid Productions.
Right.
They also did a Harry Potter musical like years 1 through 7.
Love it.
It's great stuff. But it's probably one of the two best pieces of satire, like loving satire done for Batman, the other one being the Lego Batman movie. And there's a thing where they point out that Batman's villains are literally, it's a guy with a thing on his head who does puns.
Yeah.
Like Riddler, question mark on his head, does puns. Poison Ivy, plants on her head, does puns. Joker, clown paint on the head, does puns.
Yeah.
Two-Face.
White makeup over a mustache.
Yeah.
Does puns.
Two-Face. He has two faces, he does puns, you know. It's like, but it was, and they make up a fake villain called Sweet Tooth, and literally he has candy on his head and he does puns.
That's weird. He's on this list.
Yeah.
Kate McManus put together a gigantic list.
This is exhaustive. Thank you, Kate, for putting together. There are on this list, just on this list alone, 55 villains that Batman has faced. Not including some of the villains from the 1966 television series, which, as you pointed out before we started recording, once that became a comic book, now they are all, in the comic book world. So we have guys like Egghead on the list and,
King Tut.
Yeah.
King Tut,
The Bookworm.
Mad Hatter, Falseface. Well, these guys are.
Oh yeah, Mad Hatter was in the comic already.
Yeah, the ones created for the show: King Tut, Egghead, Zelda the Great, Shame, the Bookworm, the Minstrel. Don't worry, everyone. He's an old timey like
a medieval
Robin Hood kind of minstrel.
Not an inappropriate minstrel.
Well, he might be inappropriate. We just don't know.
He could be.
He is a
I've
villain.
never heard his song, so I don't know his full canon of work.
You've also got Ma Parker, who I believe is a historical figure.
Yeah.
That somehow made her way into this.
Is that Shelley Winters?
That is
It's
Shelley
always
Winters.
Shelley Winters.
Yeah.
Tallulah Bankhead as Black Widow.
Mhm.
Louis the Lilac as played by Milton Berle. None of these, by the way, have a chance of winning.
No.
Do they?
No. But it's nice to mention. I feel like here's what I think this episode is Mark and I were conferring over text as we do often because we're friends, not just co-hosts. And we both had.
For now.
Yeah. Who knows? This could tear us apart. This could be the thing.
No, I mean, we're losing the show. We'll always be friends.
Oh, that's a bummer. Well, thanks for being on our last episode. We really appreciate it.
I have a long history of killing things that I work with. There was this isn't a joke. There was a run where there's like 3 professional wrestling companies in a row. This is before I ever got signed. They put me on their poster and literally went out of business the next show. Like as soon as you advertised me in any way, you went out of. I started laughing about it because I was like, I saw someone put me on a show and I was like, oh, they put me on the poster. I was like, oh, okay, you're going out of business.
Well, listen, for the benefit of promoters who are listening out there that have not yet worked with Simon, you are now working and being promoted, and none of those companies have closed down.
Oh, actually, one did.
One did. Look, it's a batting average.
Admittedly, that had nothing to do with me. That was like a financial thing the guy personally was going through. That was like a different deal altogether. But all the other ones have been good.
Yeah, they've all been good. It's not his fault. He's fine.
Yeah.
So just don't get trigger shy.
Nice.
But I think we both feel like we know the answer. You may already feel like you know the answer, and we're not going to say it now anyway. But this feels like, for me, the whole episode is a long in memoriam, where we're going to discuss a series of villains that are not going to win. Someone like Clayface. Clayface isn't going to win.
He's not going to win. I mean,
he's interesting.
But he's not going to win. It's right. The downside of a character like Clayface is that beyond the fact he falls in the same category as the Mr. Freeze.
Sure.
Where it wasn't until, oddly enough, the animated series that he actually had sort of a real backstory and the iteration of the character became something you could latch onto.
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze before, like, it's actually become his standard background now is from the Paul Dini, Bruce Timm series.
With his wife.
Yeah. Like that wasn't his story before that. That was an original thing they wrote. And that's the sort of stuff where, same thing with Clayface, where the actual Clayface in the comic is way boring.
Right.
And then he got reintroduced in the, cause I think there were 3 or 4 of them. Basil Karlo, I know, is one of them.
Yeah, a lot of the villains who were introduced in like the 60s, in that Silver Age era, 50s, 60s, a lot of them were like just villain of the week. They had that feel. Although Catwoman came out in the 60s, she's obviously, if I were going to put together.
Catwoman came out in 1940.
1940. What am I looking at?
I don't know.
I'm looking at Catman.
Oh,
You're looking at
Catman does exist.
Her jilted husband. Yeah, there were a lot that came out that were sort of villain of the week. Catwoman, obviously not one of them. I'd put Catwoman in the top 10.
Oh yeah, he's
For sure.
In 1940, I'm looking at this. We have a list, this Kate McManus list.
Yes.
It looks like, boy, they came out of the gate strong with what are now all of the classic villains for Batman, and then just added and filled in later. Because you look at 1940, you have Mad Monk and Hugo Strange coming out in 1939 and 1940, and then you've got the Joker, Catwoman, Scarecrow, the Penguin, Two-Face, all coming out between 1940 and 1940.
You know why, right?
I don't.
You don't know?
I don't.
A quick question. Who invented Batman?
Bob Kane.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. You're wrong.
I am.
Bill Finger.
Bill Finger.
Bill Finger
Not
is
a name I've heard.
there's actually a documentary about him. It's called Batman and Bill. You can find it on Hulu. But Bill Finger was the actual, to put this in perspective, the proto version of Batman was a character that was being worked on by Bob Kane. Bill Finger was another writer who started helping him out with it, and he actually suggested a lot of the stuff that wound up becoming the basis for Batman, the background, the way the character design, the logo, the light in the sky, all that stuff. Even a lot of the villains were Bill actually worked as a writer on Batman, but back in the day, only one guy got the byline.
Right.
And that was Bob. Bob was very smart. He admitted it, like when he was much later in life, that he was like, when they did a book about him, I think in the late 80s, right around the time the Batman movie came out, he talked about it. He was like, he felt bad. He was like, yeah, they basically, Bill Finger only just started getting credit with, I think it was with Batman versus Superman. If you actually watch the movie, it's Batman created by, Bob Kane and Bill Finger.
Wow. Because everything always for time immemorial is always Batman originally created by Bob Kane in every credit sequence.
Yeah.
And the only reason it got changed was because for years, I think it had to do with like the Writers Guild. You could only get a byline changed if you had a blood relative making the request if the person had already, because Bill Finger died in the 70s. So it's like you could only have that if a blood, and they literally found his granddaughter, like his son, they didn't know it was even married at any point. Because he wound up, you know, he was a gay man. He wound up dying from AIDS in the 80s. It was an unfortunate period where that was a very common thing. And they did not know that he'd actually been married 10 years before that, and he had a daughter.
Wow.
So they found her accidentally, like through a long series of, this guy was doing a documentary on Bill Finger, and he actually found his daughter. She was the one who finally put in the request for the change.
Was it her, was she
her
spurred
granddaughter
on to make that request by someone who knew this bloodline thing? Or she was, you know what, I've always wanted to do this?
It was a little of both, because I know she talked about how she was like, she would say that her grandpa created Batman, and no, Bob Kane. Yeah. Everyone would just tell her that, and she's like, no, my grandpa created him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, Bill Finger sounds like a Batman villain.
It does, yeah. But that was,
if he was like part dolphin, I am Bill Finger.
what if he was just a guy who had a finger for a bill? Like instead of like a duck bill, it was just like a finger hanging out of his face.
That's so simple and so horrifying. Like the image of that, just like, old finger mouth over here.
And it's moving on its own. Like he's talking, just the fingers doing that like curling finger thing.
Oof.
Oh, this is terrible.
Oh yeah, no,
This is like Scarecrow level fear being instilled in me. It's all I can picture now is what if we all grew.
All right, because we have a long list of these villains. I'm going to break them up into little chunks and because we know we'll save the big ones. We'll save the big ones for a conversation toward the end. But let's take a look at some of these honorable mentions.
Right. And then we can talk about what makes a great Batman villain.
Right.
Because first we'll talk about these people. Like, has anybody ever heard of, you know Dr. Double X?
No, that's a new one to me.
See, I don't know either.
Yeah.
He's symbiotic energy. He has a duplicate. I guess he can duplicate himself.
That's what the other X is, yeah.
Yeah, generate power bolts and a superhuman strength.
Okay, can I say something really inappropriate? I'm going to say something really inappropriate.
Sure.
I feel like we need to bring Dr. Double X back, and the whole joke needs to be it's that Dr. Double X is a woman, and that's just it.
Oh.
Because she just has 2 X chromosomes.
There you go.
That's
But that's the extent of it. That's all it is.
That's out. And it's not called out or anything.
Yeah, it's like,
say Dr. Double X. What do you want?
Yeah, they never explain it.
I went to evil medical school just like everybody else.
I found out recently in Adventure Time, Dr. Princess is not a doctor. She just happened to be named Dr. Princess, so they made her a doctor.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to name my kid Doctor.
I feel like that there aren't more, being Jewish, that there aren't more instances in my family of somebody just being named doctor, and make it easy, or lawyer.
Yeah.
Like as their name?
Yeah, just put Esquire into their name. We love it when our children go into medicine or law.
I can attest to that. My father wanted me to go into law.
Yeah?
And I said, I want
Now
to.
you're laying down the law in a ring.
No, I'm laying down for Tom Lawler. He beat the crap. No, it was a pretty rough one, but it was like, they send you that email. They're like, yeah, we want to book you for this show. Cool. Who am I wrestling? Tom Lawler. UFC Tom Lawler? Yeah. Okay.
Oh man.
What's that like? I mean, is it?
That's fun. It's, you're aware of this. I train with Seth Petrozelli, who, if you're not familiar with it, is the guy who beat Kimbo Slice at Elite XC in their first show and basically destroyed the company because they built it around Kimbo and he got beat in like 15 seconds by Seth. So, but I train with him at his jiu-jitsu school. It's MMA school in Orlando, Florida, the Jungle. And Tom actually is one of the founders originally of the Jungle before he was started.
Is Tom
fighting
related to
professionally.
Jerry the King?
No.
Okay.
That's a whole other series of jokes. But I'd make it. I'm not going to make any of them. But yeah, but getting back to Batman villains, yes, Dr. Double X, and I'm so bad. I sidebar so often.
No,
That's all right. So do we. That's the whole point of the show. We all know who it's going to be, guys.
We do know. We're not gonna reveal it.
We don't have to say it. And congratulations preemptively on being the only guy who his answer was the same on both of his episodes.
You know what? Honestly, I think the reasons are different here.
Yeah,
They are.
It's there's and I don't want to spoil it, but as he said so perfectly once, I think it was something to the effect of, you're never going to kill me because you're a stupid little rule, and I'm never going to kill you because you're just too much fun.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
So if anyone hadn't guessed who we are going to talk about last, that's what we're going to
Let's
talk
talk about
last.
some people
But
who
let's
did
talk
not
about
say that.
Yeah, let's talk about the people that didn't say that. We're looking at right now. Let's look at the 1940s, since we already started in the 40s. In the 1940s, the ones aforementioned, and also Tweedledee and Tweedledum, points for originality there. Cavalier, Mad Hatter, The Riddler, another classic.
Wait, I want to save the Riddler. Don't just
Well, yeah.
throw the Riddler
Yeah,
out
no, I'm
there.
not throwing
Oh,
the-
you just want to save
I'm just saying all the
see.
ones from the
I
time.
see.
I feel like the ones that are going to get through to the end are all the ones that have wound up being the big bads in the movies.
So you want to just pull people from the decades?
Yeah, we can pull them out from. Why we could do that, sure.
So that's the
Obviously,
40s.
the Riddler. All of them would come out of the 40s.
Well, no, I think the Riddler and Two-Face are the two I would pull out.
Well,
Out of the 40s, you wouldn't pull the Joker, Catwoman,
oh wow,
Scarecrow, the
I
Penguin,
didn't.
Riddler.
I didn't hear
Yeah.
the.
I'd pull Mad Hatter. Honestly, I think
Mad Hatter?
Mad Hatter is like the Freddy Krueger of the DC world. If you really break him down, like minus the magic dream powers, but read his backstory. It's creepy as hell. Like there's a lot of characters like that where you actually break down their stuff. They're way more disturbing than a lot of the other ones, but they don't really talk about it.
Because they're the ones that would scare the kids.
Yeah,
But he's essentially a master of hypnotism, and he does mind control devices. That's his
yes,
thing.
and
And
well, let me ask you a question.
please.
He's looking for his Alice, right?
Uh-oh.
How old's Alice?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's like an actual thing.
Oh, good
Oh,
lord. He's a
gross.
pedophile. No.
Yes. Mad Hatter's a
dear.
pedophile.
You sure you want to pull him out of the 40s? My goodness. We should put him in jail.
Yeah.
Well, that's
pull him out of
Batman's,
the 40s.
that's Batman's job. not ours.
That's true.
Pull him out of the 40s and put him far away from a school.
Yeah, my goodness. He has to knock on the doors of all the other villains to tell him when he's moving into the neighborhood for
Every
goodness
cell
sakes.
in Arkham Asylum.
Ugh.
That was
Oh, my
the,
gosh.
what was it? That was the joke on, Venture Brothers. Captain Sunshine drops the Monarch into jail, says he's, take care of him, boys. Apparently he never heard of due process. And they're like, you can't just drop a person into jail. So they take the Monarch out and put him back on the street.
I'm not familiar with the Venture Brothers
Yeah,
program.
me neither. I heard it was good. I don't know.
Last season was pretty good.
You know what? Those new guys.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Let's look at the 1950s. You know what? I'm going to lump the 50s and the 60s together because there are not many of them. In the 1950s and 60s, we had Killer Moth, Firefly, Signal Man, Dr. Double X, Mr. Freeze, Dr. Hurt, Catman, and Poison Ivy. Those are the ones. It's a good.
We got 4.
good run in the.
Because Killer Moth and Firefly both actually came up more and more later in the series. Like they're two of the characters I can think of that actually returned.
in later iterations.
Yeah.
And do they work together? Because they seem like they would, because they're both.
You'd think,
insects.
but I feel like villains teaming up is kind of a weird thing.
Also because
Yeah.
their superpowers or their supervillainy powers are, one is a gymnast and one is a pyrotechnics expert.
So
I don't know.
Look, they
they'd
both work at their Britney Spears show.
I was about to say they could both work really well together.
Yeah.
and perform.
They're doing Cirque in Vegas.
They were both in Bring It On.
That's
Really
gonna
popular.
That's gonna be the big reveal. Batman beats him so bad they just moved to Vegas and started like working the tech side of stuff,
Yeah.
and they just.
They've got a big warehouse space and they turn it into a gym and they train the next generation.
And that's where what was it? What was that show with the two guys who did the special effects? The
Mythbusters?
Mythbusters. Yeah. That's where Mythbusters started.
That's right. It
There you
started
go.
with the two of them.
Gotham City Mythbusters.
Yeah, Jamie and Adam are basically Killer Moth and Firefly.
Does the Penguin's gas umbrella really knock you out? We're going to test it today on Gotham Mythbusters.
All right, now let's look at some of the ones from the 70s.
Okay.
In the 1970s, man, I don't know why Ten-Eyed Man makes me laugh so hard. Cause Ten-Eyed Man, that is his superpower, is he can see everywhere.
Oh, it's not that he's wearing 4 pairs of glasses.
I'll be honest. When I thought of him having 10 eyes, I just thought of him all being in the front. I didn't really consider they could be other places.
Yeah, see, I pictured it like a ring of GoPros around his head.
Well, you know what? That's actually probably kind of a effective power for at least defense.
Sure, if he's a substitute teacher.
Well, no. I mean, if Batman's sneaking up on you from any angle, you can see him.
Yeah, that's true.
There's literally, you don't have a blind spot.
You also have nothing you can do about it because your only superpower is that you have 10 eyes.
But you can hit the gym. You can take a karate class.
Also in the 70s, Ra's al Ghul and Talia al Ghul,
Yeah.
Bronze Tiger, Calculator.
Wait, I like this. It says genius, but mostly effective because of his calculator suit.
I feel like
So
we
he's
really
like-
need to call Kate McManus and we should have done more research on this.
This one feels like it came from the television show.
No,
It's a
but
calculator.
But you know what? You know what it was? I guarantee you, it was. They did a joke on Family Guy years ago about Stephen King, where the whole deal was he's like, my next book, it's about it's about a lamp, haunted lamp, They're like, you're just looking at things on my desk and just making up a story on you. I feel like someone was in their office. They're just like, we need a new villain for this week's issue. He's Protractor Man. It's like, no, it's not going to work again. Like, Calculator Man. It's really technological, right? He's high tech. He can add and subtract, but he can't subtract that much because only so much power.
He can do a handstand and make boobless on his shirt.
There we go.
5537808.
Wow. Whoa. That's
I did that a lot
amazing.
as a kid. Or 773402. Flip it over. Go to hell.
Wow.
Yeah. I was real bored in math class. I was a very good student in all things with the exception of mathematics.
Well, I had a graphing calculator in high school that I thought was basically a high-tech Etch-a-Sketch because I did not like math, but I did like trying to make drawings using
yeah.
it. It was not good for
If you
that.
had a TI-86, you could play Tetris. Or TI-85, you could play Tetris on.
We had TI-81s. I'm a little older than you.
So I guess I'll raise the obvious question. Why do we then complain about kids with cell phones? If anything, I think we're more just envious of the fact that they don't have to be as bored as we were.
I'm
Yeah.
jealous. I used to play Jeopardy on a giant laptop, like a giant early laptop that my dad, it was out of date by the time I used it, but I played, I could have played, if I had a cell phone, I could have played Jeopardy and not got caught and gotten in trouble.
Oh, even just traveling, like the idea of sitting in a car for 6 hours. Like when you're a kid, you have to do the long road trips with your family.
Yeah.
It's like, hand him the iPad. Let him play with it. Okay.
We used to have, for our long road trips, we had road trip bingo.
Yeah.
Which were bingo cards that had things like a farm, an overpass. It was like, this is what was fun for us, was trying to play bingo. Like, nothing like 3 kids sitting in the back seat of a Dodge Caravan looking for overpasses.
Oh, we stopped, for those of you who are unaware of this, I was actually in Hermiston, Oregon last night. I slept about 2 hours on the plane, drove 3 hours from Hermiston to Portland to fly here, to get here at like 8:50 in the morning. But, we stopped at this roadside truck stop in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
They had metal on the dividers between the bathrooms and between the stalls.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could think was, man, our anti-glory hole technology has just come a long way, because I remember being a kid. I didn't know what it was, but I remember seeing like the hole dug, and it wasn't all the way through. It was like someone had been trying to dig a hole through one of the dividers.
Right. There's nothing sadder than like attempting and failing to dig a glory hole.
The crotch shank redemption. Just a little Rita Hayworth underneath it. They're just trying to dig a hole.
Guys, we're talking about comic books and have kids that listen to this show.
Well, then we shouldn't have been talking about the Mad Hatter, but here we are.
That's true.
We've crossed the
by the way,
line.
I looked up some calculator. He actually, not a terrible superpower. He has a special suit that registers other fighters' moves and counters them in the moment. So he's basically Sherlock Holmes from the Robert Downey reboot.
Right.
Where they would slow down all the fights and he would overcalculate in his head.
With oddly enough, with the same power as the scanner from Dragon Ball.
There you go.
There it is.
I feel like a lot of superpowers just get recycled over and over.
Oh yeah, because
there's not that many.
Oh, yeah, well, there aren't, but I feel like you can come up with more creative ones than they often do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever saw Paranorman.
Yes, I did see Paranormal.
Amazing movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it goes completely like, it does not go the way you think it's going to go. You start watching it, it's an example of you can take a very simple idea and do it well and be original with it still. And I think that's the thing with a lot of these characters, is that there's some cases like with Killer Moth and Firefly where they come back later and they're actually better. We were talking about that off air about like, Clayface, or no, maybe it was on air. I can't remember. I get hit in the head for a living. I didn't sleep. But Clayface and Mr. Freeze, where these are characters where their initial creation is awful and they're just not interesting characters. And it takes a while for a writer to get a hold of them. Daredevil was the same way. Daredevil was terrible for 20 years. Mm-hmm. Created him in the 60s and he was a boring character. And then Frank Miller got a hold of him in the early 80s and he was like, let me see what I can do with this. And he created something very interesting that to this day, and whatever anyone wants to say about Frank Miller, there was a period between like early 80s to late 80s. His work with Daredevil and Batman was untouchable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it sort of spawned a lot of the popular media that we enjoy now, or that have happened in the last 20 years.
And also that
plus.
aesthetic of comic books.
Yeah.
Going to that much darker and moody coolness.
Well, it's the idea that you don't have to, a medium is neither adult or child. It's only, it's a medium. You can create whatever you want to do. You can make a TV show that's for adults or for children. It has a target audience, obviously, but.
Right. It's like, Maurice Sendak. When people asked him about, I loved this. I saw an interview with him where they asked him about Where the Wild Things Are being a children's book. He's like, it's not a children's book. It's a book. Turns out kids read it. And I was like, all right, well, that may be a little, but it's a cool point. It's like, he's like, no, I just wrote a book that I thought was interesting. All right, let's go. Let's keep going through the 70s.
Yep.
We have the Black Spider, Captain Stingery, Dr. Phosphorus, Maxie Zeus, Killer Croc.
Now you're in the 80s.
Oh, no, I'm in the 80s. Killer Croc
Keep
was
going.
in the 80s.
Just go into the 80s.
I'm just going to go into the 80s. Killer Croc, The Wrath, Film Freak, Magpie, Reaper, James Gordon Jr., KG Beast. That is a fantastic name.
Very 1980s.
Ventriloquist, Ratcatcher, and Anarchy. That is the 70s and 80s. Any of these that pop out that are particular favorites of you guys?
I'm gonna go with Maxie Zeus, honestly. That's because Killer Croc's kind of obvious, and maybe an outside chance for Anarchy, but only because, like, my only familiarity with Anarchy, admittedly, is Arkham City, the video game. Mm-hmm. He appears in that, or maybe it's Arkham Origins. I can't remember. It's one of the two.
Right.
But he appears in one of the video games. That's my only experience with the character. But the idea is kind of sound, where you have
Maxie Zeus.
Oh no, Maxie Zeus appears only in the background. But I like Maxie Zeus just because it's an insane gimmick, just an insane character idea.
What is Maxie Zeus's gimmick?
He's Zeus.
He's just Zeus.
He's just Zeus.
Really?
He's just a Zeus dude.
He's like, so he's a scientist who's just figured out lightning bolts. So
No, he just thinks he's Zeus. Like, literally,
he just thinks
it's not even all that creative.
He has not in fact harnessed the power of lightning. He just thinks he's
He
Zeus.
might have, but he's pretty much just like a big buff dude that thinks he's Zeus.
All right. I like that.
You know, there's some characters where there's a lot of thought put into them, and there's some characters where there just feels like there's none.
Oh, like Reaper.
Yeah.
Reaper is ridiculous. Reaper is just a Grimm Reaper, but with a gun. You're like, all right, there you go.
Okay, well, we'll go with it.
Yeah. Hal, you got any in there that are particular favorites?
No, I mean, Killer Croc. I feel like Killer Croc has become more prominent recently. Maybe thanks in part to that god-awful Suicide Squad movie. He's also a great video game boss. So he's in the Arkham games. I remember him in the first Arkham Asylum. Like, he's just sort of a natural, good, like, he's gonna charge around, you dodge, you throw the Batarang. And he's also interesting in that he kind of is suffering from a syndrome that makes him the way that he is. He's not like a crocodile and a guy fell into a vat and then Killer Croc popped out.
And he was one of the most brilliant, just slight, quiet digs by a Lego Batman movie at Suicide Squad. He swims underwater, turns on the bomb. I'm helping.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is literally that's exactly all he does in Suicide Squad is he swims underwater and turns on a bomb. That he didn't even, like, I think they even looked at it, he didn't really need to do that. They could have had anyone do it.
Yeah.
Well, what do you guys know about, I'm fascinated by this guy. I don't know a ton about him. Film Freak.
Not familiar with him, honestly.
Film Freak, it is a villain who is, his human alter ego is Burt Weston, a wannabe actor who dreams of getting a big break playing quirky villains. That is what he literally wants to play villains in movies.
I'm so glad they made a Batman villain out of me.
And then he just uses assorted movie tropes to create his villainy. He faked his death a la The Sting. He, stalked a woman a la Norman Bates in Psycho. I'm kind of a big fan of this guy. Now I want to go through and read what this guy has to offer. And I would love to see the super meta movie that they make with Film Freak as the bad guy. So that's going to be my honorable mention I'm pulling out of that era.
Okay.
So let's move into the 90s. Now we haven't really delved into the big ones. We're still just going through our.
We're wading through a lot of the hilarious.
Yeah, the ridiculous stuff.
We didn't even touch on Polka Dot Man.
Who is Polka Dot Man? Did we mention him?
Oh, I don't think we did.
Did he put polka dots on things?
I think he threw polka dots at people
He threw polka dots.
So as I said once again, they're the two great pieces of very loving, lampooning of Batman were, the Lego Batman movie and then, Holy Musical Batman. And they did there's a joke where Zach Galifianakis, who does the voice of Joker in Lego Batman, is running off all these villains. They actually do a similar thing in Holy Musical Batman where they just start listing off all the ridiculous B, C, D, E, F, G, Z level villains that were in the series. And that's actually the whole plan in Holy Musical Batman is we're going to get all of the villains and Batman won't be able, cause it's like, yeah, Batman might be able to fight one of us, but he can't fight 90 of us.
Pretty great.
It's a pretty solid idea.
That must be what they just do for musicals based on, superheroes, because Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark was the same way. It was just, let's throw a bunch of villains at him at the end and have a great big fight because he can't kill them all at once.
No, that was actually just the idea behind the 3 Spider-Man movies. How many villains does he have? He's got like 85. Okay, put 17 in this movie, put 6 in this one. Can we just have like 4 hanging off the back of a panel truck driving by? They don't even have to be involved. Just have them drive by. The Rhino's legit in the movie for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And they got Paul Giamatti to play him.
That's right.
Oh my God. In the suit. It was
They're insanity.
So bad.
At a certain point, I feel like Marvel and is it 20th Century Fox?
It's Sony. Sony has Spider-Man.
It's like Marvel and Sony are just, it's just like a divorced couple that don't like each other.
Yeah.
They're just, at a certain point, they're just like, oh, we're canceling the comic series. Like, oh, you're going to cancel the comic series? We're going to make Johnny Storm black and drive a lot of people crazy for reasons that they're not going to be comfortable admitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've loaned the MCU Spider-Man.
So Sony
Spider-Man is now back in the MCU permanently.
Sony and Marvel have a deal where Sony makes a lot of money off of it, but Marvel gets Spider-Man for creative and probably gets some money. But the Fantastic Four, which are under, so 20th Century Fox has X-Men and Fantastic Four, and they keep making Fantastic Four movies, none of which are even close to the Roger Corman Fantastic Four, which is itself terrible. But they keep making it so they don't lose the right. It's a whole mess.
Yeah, there's a whole documentary about it.
There is?
Oh yeah. There's a documentary
about everything.
There's a documentary about the
about the Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
Yes, that I was aware of.
There's also
this isn't just the behind the scenes.
No, it's an actual documentary about like the process and how none of the actors that were, because they made the Fantastic Four movie, the Corman one, with no intention of releasing it.
Yeah, he was just running. He needed to make it before he was going to lose the rights, so he just made it to make it.
Because they actually contacted Lloyd Kaufman, who I did a panel with today over at LA Comic Con. I can name drop. Don't worry.
That guy directed me in a movie.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Actually, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, who I know is I'll know him as well. He's over there. That was a terrible name drop. That was like a name,
The Rock Johnson.
That was like a name fumble. I just oh look, name I know.
To be fair, it's about as big as a name gets, so it's easy to drop it. It's very heavy.
Oh, well, once again, he's a dense person. Like physically, it's just like all muscle.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, let's move in and look at some of the 90s. The 90s also rans in the Rogues Gallery. We've got NKV Demon, King Snake, Harley Quinn.
Not an also ran. I would put her.
Oh, no. You're right. Well, I'm just.
You want to say who was who?
I'm saying who came
released.
through each era. Many of these will be also rans, and many of them will go into our final list of amazing.
Yes.
Mr. Zaz.
Yes, Victor Zaz, the serial killer.
Yeah, he cuts himself every time he kills someone.
That's just like straight out of a horrific horror movie, not a comic book.
Yeah, it's frightening.
There's some frightening characters in this world.
There are.
Oh, yeah.
Bane, of course.
Yeah.
Tallyman, he will tally your bananas.
Now, is that actually, I didn't know, is Tallyman actually, Harry Belafonte?
Yeah, it's Harry Belafonte.
It is Harry Belafonte.
It's just Harry Belafonte.
Harry Belafonte, sharpshooter. That's what Tallyman is.
There we go.
But he shoots love and understanding at people.
Yeah, you know what? Harry Belafonte is the greatest.
Yes, he is.
Treasure. Lockup, who's good at locking people up. Prometheus. You've got David Kane. That is the last of the 1990s. And we might as well. There's only 6 left. Philo Zeiss.
Yep.
Orca. Hush. The Great White Shark. Forgive me for saying this probably incorrectly. Nissa Ratko.
Okay.
I'm a fan of a lot of the aquatic ones. I gotta be honest. It's like
Black Mask and Clayface. Clayface introduced. When was Clayface introduced?
It was probably a reintroduction at that point.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because this is listed at after 2009.
Yeah. I gotta throw Black Mask in there just because, if nothing else, he's brilliant in the Under the Red Hood animated film.
Oh yeah,
cool.
But I like the idea that he's just a guy wearing a mask that got burned to his face. That's all it is. He was wearing a mask and it got burned to his face.
What was he doing wearing a mask in the first place?
Oh,
how many times do you just wear a mask?
Oh, he was a criminal.
Oh,
he was, I think his family owned a chemical company. I think his family owned Ace Chemicals is what the whole story was.
So getting burned and having the mask attached to his face wasn't what made him evil. He was already evil.
He was already committing crimes. It was just how can I put this?
Committing crimes.
There's a line. It's
lying a lot.
Yeah. Once again, the Holy Musical Batman makes a great joke about that, where it's these guys are committing minor crimes and Batman is just like brutally crippling them.
Yeah. What is Egghead doing? He's chucking eggs. I mean, they explode.
But that's all he's doing. It's just Halloween fun.
Yeah, it's basically, I have some of those little poppers in my car that you throw on the ground and they just kind of they have a little gunpowder in them. So I'm basically Egghead.
Let's do this. Let's take a quick break and let's come back and talk about the finalists.
Right.
And then pick a winner.
Great. Or announce a winner.
And we'll announce a winner. That's coming up next.
Yeah.
I'm Riley Smurl.
I'm Sydney McElroy. And I'm Taylor Smurl. And together, we host a podcast called Still Buffering, where we answer questions like,
why should I not fall asleep first at a slumber party?
How do I be fleet? Is it okay to break up with someone using emojis?
And sometimes we talk about butts.
No, we don't. Nope.
Find out the answers to these important questions and many more on Still Buffering, a sister's guide to teens through the ages.
I am a teenager.
And I was too.
Butts.
No.
Will you change your mind for too many times over and over again?
The Dead Pilot Society podcast brings you hilarious comedy pilots that were never made, featuring actors like Aubrey Plaza, Andy Richter, Paul F. Tompkins, John Hodgman, Adam Scott, Molly Shannon, Busy Phillips, Tom Lennon, Anna Camp, Laurie Metcalf, Felicia Day, Michael Ian Black, Adam Savage, Paul Scheer, Ben Schwartz, Skylar Aston, Mae Whitman, Josh Molina, Ben Feldman, Nicole Byer, Jason Ritter, Sarah Chalk, Steve Agee, Jane Levy, Allison Tolman, Danielle Nicolette, Casey Wilson, Anna Ortiz, Lorraine Newman, June Diane Raphael, Kieran Chipka, Ed Week, Zach Knight, and Carrie Kenny Silver, John Ross Bowie, Jamie Denbo, Janet Varney, Alessandra Forsani, Summer, Ellie Morales, Matt Gordon, and many more. Listen at MaximumFun.org, iTunes, or wherever you download podcasts.
Okay, so we're back. We've got some finalists here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk through. This is who I think the finalists would be. I would put Bane, Harley Quinn in there. I would not put Victor Zsasz. Then you've got Catwoman, Scarecrow, Penguin, Two-Face, Riddler, and the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Would you put Hugo Strange in that list as well?
I would, if for no greater reason than that if there's really one thing that Bruce Wayne or Batman genuinely fears, it's a psychiatrist.
That's true.
This is a man who, rather than dealing with his emotional problems, decided to learn ninjutsu and dress up like a bat.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's
a reason that I love having Scarecrow on this list.
Yeah.
It's the psychological stuff. The fact that Scarecrow uses fear itself as his weapon is terrifying to me.
Yes, his weaponized fear, and that it even affects Batman sometimes if he's not wearing some sort of a respirator or if he hasn't been inoculated against it. But a guy who can use fear to control people is really frightening.
Oh yes.
And also Harley Quinn. Those are three people in the psychiatric field who have made the finals against Batman. What makes a great Batman villain? I would throw out initially it's that they have some complexity to them.
Complexity is a good thing to bring up. On top of that, also they need to be able to challenge him in his areas of, because it's one thing to try and fight Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You might outfight him, you might not. The whole issue is that, I mean, even he's a detective. The whole idea is that he's supposed to be able to outthink people.
Mm-hmm.
That's his, if you were going to say, yeah, the superpower would be that, is his intellect.
Yeah.
So.
What disarms?
Yeah, what disarms him? There's a, Pete Holm, who did a series of shorts called Bad Man.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And they had they did the Batman versus Superman one, and Superman proposed to team up, and his whole thing is like, why? I have no superpowers. I'm basically rich and nuts. Rich and nuts. That's all I got. And Superman's trying to tell him, like, oh, but Bruce, your scientific mind is nothing when we have a guy who bullets literally bounce off of. I got my back broken by Bane, and he's basically a jock with asthma.
Would that take a guy like Bane out of the running? I know Bane is a brilliant tactician as well, who also uses the
cool
venom,
voice.
Venom gas.
I'm a believer in giant freak, jacked up, insane Bane. I'm not a believer in little normal size Bane.
He should be gigantic when he's under the
venom.
When the venom has affected him. But the fact that he broke Batman's back and put him out of commission makes him a notable. That would elevate him into this elite group just because he got the better of him physically, which is not easy to do.
Right. No. But and he also gave us the strangest side note: Jewish Batman.
What?
Who replaced Batman when he got his back broken?
I don't know. Bill Finger?
The Azrael.
Oh.
And he was an Israeli.
Oh.
Yeah, so we actually had Jewish Batman for a little while.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I hope I'm right about that. As I recall, that was the thing, but I might be wrong.
Don't worry. This goes out over the internet. We'll know very quickly if anything was wrong.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we'll know very quickly if anything was right.
Yeah, it's true.
And we'll get yelled at for that.
Yeah, it won't matter. Here's the thing. There are going to be a lot of you here who have specific allegiances to some of these villains. Only one of them is going to win. And you're going to pull out tons of examples of times they did something cool or did something villainous or got the better of Batman, which a lot of these villains have. I don't think there's anybody in this group that was just wholly ineffective against him. But we're looking at their work as a whole. How do they match up? What kind of a counterpoint are they to Batman?
Right.
So to me, Harley Quinn is the most recent entry that probably is the most impactful. And not only, but, her relationship to the Joker is really interesting, but I also think that on her own, she's a great villain.
See, this is where
She doesn't need the Joker to be a great villain.
that I don't know if that's true.
The Joker is her origin. Right?
Yes.
So the things that
But
she does
so
are
which makes her still feel at least a little bit like a sidekick.
companion, I would say.
You have to consider that first and foremost, she was created as a one note joke. That was, it was, let's have Joker have a girl sidekick or a girl henchman. That's all it was when she was originally created. And then she kept reappearing and she got more and more depth with time and people clung to her because she was an odd character. Mm-hmm. Now, whereas the Joker, we never really get an idea of Joker's physical prowess at any point.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like whenever he's becomes physical with Batman, it's so violent. It's not even necessarily that he's like a strong fighter or a good tactician. He's violent. It's the purest way to say it. He's a violent human being. I'm not the first person to say this, but the winner of a fight is not always the strongest, the fastest, the smartest. It's the least moral.
Right.
The less morals you have, if you've ever watched The Walking Dead, spoiler for this for anyone who doesn't want to know. There's a scene in one of the episodes where Rick, Michonne, and Carl are being held by these group of guys that are cannibals, and they straight up tell Rick, "We're gonna rape your woman, we're gonna rape your son, we're gonna make you watch, and then we're gonna kill him, and then we're gonna kill you." And the guy's just laughing in Rick's face about it. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do all this." And Andrew Lincoln did a wonderful job. You can almost see him being like, "Okay, that's it," and he bites the guy's throat out. He literally just leans forward and bites. They're holding him. They have his arms and his legs. He doesn't have a weapon. No. He does the most feral, violent thing you can think of. And everyone else, these guys who are straight up cannibals who are talking about raping a child, 2 seconds later are running scared because they just saw a man go feral. And
that's the Joker's thing.
That's
too.
the Joker.
It is, what is the most, like, no, I guess the phrase stop at nothing.
Yeah. Even in Dark Knight Returns, when they have the showdown in the Tunnel of Love, where Joker stabs him like 30 times. Mm-hmm. Technically, Batman might survive a stabbing, and most people might just go stab and be done. Joker's just over and over and over and over and over. Like, no, I'm not stopping until your guts are on the ground. I'm just going to keep going.
Isn't that part of Harley Quinn as well, though? Is that she's like, she's become unhinged because of her relationship with the Joker and her devotion to him. She
is a testament to the violent nature of codependence. Like, and that's her whole deal, is that she's really, at least initially, she was a codependent, essentially a victim unto herself, where she wasn't necessarily a bad person, but she was so intoxicated by the Joker that she had become evil.
Right.
But it wasn't evil for the end of, I'm evil. Like, the Joker is evil to no reason. That's his whole point. There's no point.
Right.
He is nihilism incarnate. He is, I want you to see that everything you're doing is pointless. Your life is meaningless. Everyone's going to die. Everyone's going to suffer. And you are just as bad as me, even if you don't want to admit it. That's his whole point. That's all he wants.
Yeah.
Harley Quinn is like, oh, but I love him. It's like if Ike and Tina took a really dark turn. And that's saying a lot, because that's a very sad story.
Yes. Yeah.
With a happy ending, admittedly, but like the story is sad.
Yes. No, that is a good point. Well then let's look at somebody else who is in a very interesting relationship, which is Catwoman. Because of her relationship with Batman over time, I think she meets a lot of criteria, and that she can match him physically. Yeah. Because of how agile she is. She knows how to fight. She's also psychologically can manipulate him, and they have a relationship. So sometimes they're together fighting on the same side. Sometimes sometimes they're together because of convenience. Sometimes it's because they love one another. There's sort of the star-crossed and doomed, relationship. But I think that makes her a fascinating, like, she's a great example of a strong female character. Right. Because she's not defined by her relationship with him at all. It just adds wrinkles as much for her as it does for him.
She's one of the great characters, but I don't know if she's...
I can throw someone in there that actually meets the criteria that she does, and one more that makes it worse.
What's that?
We're forgetting, because he's probably didn't make the list because technically he's not a villain anymore, but Jason Todd when he was the Red Hood.
Ah.
Because that was Batman's mistakes coming back to haunt him, which is one of his big fears, because his whole trauma was his feeling that he somehow caused his parents' death.
Right.
And then that was compounded with Jason Todd, where it was, oh, you actually caused his death. Like, you're the guy who really caused him to die. You took this 12-year-old child and put him into the world of crime fighting, and you put him in a position where he ultimately got murdered by the Joker. And then he got brought back by Ra's al Ghul and was completely insane and started killing people himself. So and I'm sure, like I said, I guarantee he didn't make the list because he was only a villain for a very brief time.
Right.
But in that time, that was one of the worst things you could have to imagine Batman could go through. Because with Catwoman, he's never done anything, shall we say, there was no mistake that created Catwoman from his standpoint. He didn't make her.
Yes.
He has to take 100% responsibility for someone like the Red Hood. Because even with the Joker, it's like you could argue Joker, there's something wrong with him in the first place.
You could argue that.
But Jason Todd was just a kid. He was just an orphan who got adopted by a rich guy and thought, oh, I won the lottery. It's like, oh, I won the super lottery. I get to be a superhero. It's like, oh, I'm going to get beat to death with a crowbar.
Oof. Yeah. And as ways to go, that is not a great way to go.
That's a bottom 3.
Yeah. Oh, hey, John DiMaggio, let's get let's get a photo of you and me in the crowbar, and then let's get a photo of you in the crowbar.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
Oh, John. Great performance.
Sure.
I list him as easily top 3 Jokers. I don't think he gets enough credit for it. That performance was amazing.
Yeah, he that is a killer Joker.
And it's one of the few that wasn't just an impression of Mark Hamill doing it.
That's the trap because it's such an iconic performance.
Oh, I still would like to hear someday the Tim Curry one. I don't know if there's any.
Oh yeah, because he was the original actor cast,
and he was deemed too frightening by Fox executives.
Well, and then he made it and proved it. He is frightening as a clown.
That movie's way funnier when you look back at you don't realize. You go back and watch it now, you don't realize how ridiculous it was at the time. Because I remember being horrified by it. I was genuinely frightened.
It was bone chilling in 1992.
Yeah, and then you go back and watch it and you go, oh, that's nothing.
Yeah. Well, why is that guy from Clue dressed like a clown in a sewer?
Hey, look at his teeth. Look
at his big weird teeth.
Why is Dr. Frankenfurter doing all this stuff?
He doesn't need to do this. So
getting back to Catwoman.
So we don't think it's Catwoman.
I don't think it's Catwoman. I think Catwoman is one of the greatest characters in the comic book canon, but I think that she's not the greatest Batman villain because of the team ups. Because they frequently find themselves on the same side. I think it's an insult to Catwoman to call her just a Batman villain.
At this point, she's kind of expanded beyond that, and she's almost more of a neutral character.
Right.
She's not necessarily, because her goal, she's not out to take over the world. She's not out to kill people.
Right. She's out for herself.
She's just out to get money. That's it. She's almost such a base villain that you kind of can't really call her a supervillain. Even then, she's just a criminal. She's just a thief.
Really, really good at it criminal who happens to be friends with Batman sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, once you've done the horizontal Batusi, you don't really get to.
Ooh, the horizontal Batusi.
Oh my God.
That was my.
I never thought that was something I didn't want to hear until I heard it. I never thought that.
Oh yeah.
Turns out.
I want to talk about the Penguin, who I love. I
love the Penguin.
A specific origin story of his that came out where the reason why he dresses the way he does is because of his mother. That his mother raised him to be a gentleman, raised him never to fight anyone, and he got beat up mercilessly. So he went away to, I think he went to England and went to school, something like that in this story, and learns to box and fight, and then goes back and just destroys everybody who ever tortured him. And it becomes clear, like, you understand why he carries an umbrella, because his mother said you never know when it's going to rain, why he dresses the way he does, and sort of his motivation is that he's hurt, like that experience and the extent to which he was tortured kind of twisted him and then helped give him the push over the cliff to become the villain that he is. That said,
that seems like a really dark and human version of that story.
It does, but I hate to say it this way. I kind of put him into the same category as a Catwoman in that his goals are so simple that I don't know that I'd call him a great Batman villain for, like, he's a great character. He's a great character to play off of. And the back and forth with him and Batman is always really good. It's just the issue of, if you're like, it was a similar thing I made in the last time I was on the show, we were talking about just movie villains in general.
Yeah.
And the point I made about characters like Jaws or the xenomorph from Alien is that they're just animals. They're just doing what an animal does. They don't really have an actual goal. Jaws isn't trying to take over the world.
Yeah.
In the same way, you could argue, well, he's trying to take over the Penguin's trying to take over the criminal underworld. Yeah, but one drug dealer versus another drug dealer is still a drug dealer. It doesn't make you're not like, there's not like, if Kingpin's selling all the drugs in New York, then the world's going to end. But, as long as it's, these three guys, it's okay. It's
right.
The issue is that someone's doing it, not who's doing it.
Right.
He's a good character, but in the same way with Catwoman, he's just a criminal. At the end of the day, he's just looking for a financial profit. He's not out to take over the world. He's not Pinky in the Brain,
Right. Then what about a character like Two-Face, who I think he meets complex. I think he's got what his desire is changes from moment to moment. The faithful version of him where, he's half man and half monster, and everything is decided by a coin, and he lives to it rigidly, whether or not Batman lives or dies, what his next action is. I think that's I think he's interesting.
It's a great hook.
It's great, and everything's left to chance, so Batman can't determine what his next action is.
I like the fact that he's basically a walking Jungian theory. He is the duality of man. He's just, he is, evil and good mixed into one.
Right.
Though I have to keep mentioning it. If you guys haven't watched it, Holy Musical Batman, it's on YouTube for free.
You can watch the whole musical.
Oh yeah.
Great.
But instead of BAT, it's B and then the @ symbol.
All right.
That's how they do it copyright wise.
Nice.
But,
sure.
The joke is that, Two-Face is basically a Seinfeld character. And all the other villains hate him.
That's pretty great.
And
Wait, I have a question. If the A in this Batman musical is the @ symbol, is the T? Is the T?
There's no
present?
T. It's
Okay.
B @ symbol man.
Great. That's all I was asking.
You wanted to make sure it was correct.
I wanted to make sure that they
That's
did it
what
right.
you wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not Batman.
It's not. No. It's,
Right.
But the thing with Two-Face is he works I think a lot better than that, and even in the idea that he was Batman's friend at what he was Harvey Dent was Batman's friend in every iteration. My personal favorite still being Billy D. Williams.
Sure.
Right. What was his version?
He played Harvey Dent
That's right. He was
in
Harvey
the Batman
Dent in
movie.
the Tim Burton movie.
Yeah, and then he played Two-Face in the Lego Batman.
Yeah, which
movie.
was a great callback.
Yeah.
That they were like, no, you're finally going to be Two-Face after 30 years.
Yeah. There are so many different versions of each of these great villain origin stories that I have trouble keeping them intact.
His is actually pretty consistent.
He is the district attorney and
his face gets burned.
His face gets burned.
Generally the story is the Joker throws acid in his face.
Yeah, it varies who throws it, but it's acid is thrown in his face because sometimes it's a Joker, sometimes it's a crime boss, sometimes it's just a random thug.
Right.
There's one version of the story I remember from the 80s or 90s where he got his face burned, but he actually got surgery to repair it. But the mental scarring was so bad that he actually clawed at his own face until it was ripped raw and scarred because he didn't believe the surgery worked.
Man, there's some dark comic books out there, boys.
But he's super complex.
Oh yeah, and he's definitely a great villain, and I think he's also a interesting complement to Batman because Batman is someone who wears two different masks. Mm-hmm.
He wears them one at a time.
Well, technically, he only wears one mask if you think about the way he views himself.
Right, that Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is the person.
That was what ultimately led to Kevin Conroy winning our best Batman episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Was that he captured that better than anyone else.
And I believe I can't remember the episode, but there's a line where he said, "That's how I knew it wasn't, or this was up there, that wasn't me." He goes, "How do you know?" He goes, "I don't call myself Bruce."
There you go.
What do you call yourself? And he just looks at him like, "Oh, you know what I call myself."
Yeah. But Two-Face I think checks a lot of boxes. But there is something to the random that he can be good. He's just as likely to be good as evil because that Harvey Dent is still there somewhere. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, maybe I think that's what
why
will ultimately make him not the best villain is that he's half good.
He's a good reflection of Batman. I will say that because Batman is a complex character who has I think there was someone who summed up Batman. It was like sum up a movie poorly. It was like mentally scarred billionaire violently assaults homeless people while wearing a costume.
Yeah.
It's kind of a horrible.
There you go.
If you phrase it like that or assaults, homeless mental patients with.
Yeah.
You can phrase it where it's very negative, but Harvey Dent has a capacity for good in theory. Mm-hmm. Whereas a lot of, that's kind of thing is he isn't 100% bad, even if he's 99.9% bad.
Yeah.
But you can say that about all of them though. You could say, except for one.
Yes.
But you can say that about, Cobblepot.
Oh yeah.
You can say that about, the Catwoman. You can say it about Two-Face.
There's literally, we're going to get to him eventually, but I do know of one thing that he did that wasn't that bad. That was actually kind of like a good guy moment. It's really weird.
Oh, well then let's get to it. We're going to get to it very soon. Let's talk about I think the Riddler is really the only
one
guy left.
Yeah.
I love the Riddler. I love the idea of the Riddler, particularly Frank Gorshin's Riddler.
Oh,
I grew up.
Frank Gorshin's Riddler is, it's the showman.
Hey, to his credit though, John Astin did several appearances of the Riddler on the 66 show, and he was wonderful.
Yeah, he was great too.
Gomez Adams?
Yeah.
John Astin? No,
yeah.
Also Dr. Gangrene from Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh yeah. He had a long distinguished career. Mr. John Astin, he did it all.
You had said something earlier to me that I loved, in your hopes and dreams about a Christopher Nolan-esque version of the Riddler.
Yeah.
Do you remember this?
No, but I can't wait to hear what I said.
When we were just talking earlier this afternoon about this.
Okay.
Oh gosh, or maybe my brain is just fried and we actually mentioned it in this podcast in the last hour. I don't know. But, if in a Christopher Nolan style Batman movie, the Riddler would just be the Zodiac killer.
Oh, I never said that, but that's a great idea.
Who was I talking to?
I have no idea.
Wait, this was a conversation I had
whoever put together the list, maybe?
Was it John Connor? Is he sitting on the couch right over there?
Sitting right here. Anyway, I'm going to attribute it to the Riddler. Yeah. Who has left a series of notes on this table to help me figure out who said this. But I love that idea of if there was going to be a Riddler now, it would just be a psychotic serial killer who left clues.
Well, it's the same way that, Barry Allen was a police scientist originally, and then now he's just a CSI. Crime scene investigator. Yeah. Well, because that's what he'd be. It's police scientist isn't like a real job.
No. Yeah. That was the smart, the first episode of Gotham I saw he's in the pilot. Edward Nygma's in the CSI. He's in the lab. Of course he'd be the guy who loves, of course he loves puzzles so much but it's the compulsion he has to create them. He's got to outsmart Batman. It's not that he can just he could probably rob a bank and get away with it and nobody would know. But he feels the need to engage Batman in this war of wits and prove how smart he is because of his ego.
And it's the Sherlock Holmes syndrome. What's the point of being the smartest man in the world if you don't get to prove it?
Exactly.
What if you can't show people that, you don't care?
Yeah.
And there's something sort of gloriously Shakespearean in that. I am this master criminal, but I have one fatal flaw. I love the whole one fatal flaw idea. And Riddler's hubris is a great example of that. So that makes him a fun villain, I think.
I also like the fact that in the Arkham games, he straight up cheats.
Oh, really?
They're Riddler puzzles, and there's one that always, when I figured it out, I was so pissed. Because it was like a shell game, a 3-card Monty, with a person and you have to pick which thing they're in. If you don't find it, they die. Mm-hmm. Because Batman has the X-ray thing they can put on.
Yeah.
If you put that on, you realize the person dropped, you watch it, they drop below the actual things and they move to a random one. So the one they're in when it starts is not the one they're ever in again. So you have to do that to figure out which one they pop up and they're actually in. And I was like, that's so dirty. But it was
that's the Riddler.
That's the joke, is that with the Riddler, is that sometimes he isn't playing fair. Yeah. Because he just wants to win. He just wants to be smarter than Batman. Yeah. He just wants to prove that he's smarter.
Yeah, it's such a great fatal flaw for a character, but it also, he can't, there's no way he's the best villain.
No.
There's no way
Let's talk about who the best villain is.
Let's talk about the Joker. This is the second time you've been on the show.
Come on, of course
the Joker's won twice. What's the good thing that he did?
Okay, so this is a really odd good thing. I don't know the exact comic book. I've only seen the panel. It was like a Marvel DC crossover where he was momentarily teamed with the Red Skull until his realization that the Red Skull is a Nazi.
Yeah.
And the Joker was not standing for that.
Even the Joker. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a way more Nazis are going around right now than there should be in the real world.
Yes.
So if you look to the Joker, the most evil, nihilistic, dangerous, psychotic villain of all time, and even that guy's like, nah, these Nazis are too much for me.
Yeah.
His reaction is you can find the panel online. If you just search Joker Nazis, it'll probably pop up. Or Joker Red Skull, and he's just like, I might be a psychotic criminal, but I'm an American psychotic criminal, all right? I'm not.
That's the brilliance of the Joker, though, is that he's got his own internal code. Nobody knows what it is.
Oh, yeah.
And if you tried to piece it together from the comics, you would run yourself in crazy circles because it's going to contradict itself.
Because he's kind of beyond the nihilism, he's kind of a manic depressive. You know, there are points where it's about the comedy, and there's points where it's about the horror. It's about the horrible things he can do and the vile things he can do. I mean, they more or less imply he raped Barbara Gordon in Killing Joke.
Right.
They never say it outright, but he sexually assaults her in some way, but they're never very specific.
Right.
They just show that he took photos, but they don't go into they don't any more detail.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, the whole point was he was trying to push Batman's buttons. That was his whole goal. He was like, I will do the most horrible thing in the world if I think it'll get to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
And
ultimate.
and that's the whole point of the Lego Batman movie too, is to take that relationship of Joker and Batman are so perfectly each other's.
Mm-hmm.
That there's all of the rest of these they're really fun villains.
Oh yeah.
But as a flip side of the coin, I'm not mentioning Two-Face again.
No.
Yeah.
But as the other side of Batman, there's no comparing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's ultimately what Batman fears,
Mm-hmm.
which is the utter lack of control. Batman's whole thing is he wants control. He wants to be able to have control over himself, over the environment, over
Right.
people who are committing these crimes.
He makes Lucius make that big sonar, use everybody's phones thing.
Which, once again, this is immoral. This is immoral. Oh, this is immoral. The billionaire playboy putting on a costume and beating up people isn't immoral. But this, listening to some phone calls is immoral. Finding out that some guy's having to tell his girlfriend about, the STD he developed, or that some woman's having to talk about, her kid got suspended from school. Hearing that's immoral, but,
Yeah.
Oh, let me build
We
you
have a bunch of mental patients.
let me build you a tank so you can drive around on the city and just smash buildings and cop cars. That's fine. Lucius Fox is the biggest hypocrite in all of Batman. Let me go on record and say that.
Wow. We don't even need that episode now.
No,
It's a
that's
two for
just-
one.
Were we going to do an episode of who's the biggest hypocrite in all of Batman?
Well, we just did. Why do it now?
Yeah.
Now it's clean slate.
It's Lucius Fox. It's anyone who helps Batman and then questions Batman's morality. It's like, dude, you're way worse because, Batman's at least got a reason to do this. You could have said no.
Yeah.
It's not like your family got murdered.
You can only look so far the other direction. But yeah, it's people of the world, the worst. The reason why he's such a great villain is I think not only does the Joker being contrasted with Batman show how good Batman is, how much of a force of good he is, but it also shows how hypocritical he is and how that's what Joker knows the buttons to press and he's figured out his weakness. He doesn't need to know who Batman is under the mask. It's unimportant. You even see that in The Dark Knight where he wants to know and then he realizes, well, if I unmask him, then I don't get to have the fun. I want to play with you forever.
If any, you know what? I want to propose an alternate theory. I think he knows the secret about Batman.
Yeah.
Not that it's Bruce Wayne, but he knows that he doesn't know that Batman's Bruce Wayne. He knows that Bruce Wayne's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
His whole thing, I think that's
Batman's the real one.
Yeah, he knows that Batman is the actual person, that Bruce Wayne is this facade. And I think, and that might be why he screws with him so hard, is because he wants him to admit it. He wants him to, he's like, no, I know that you really think of yourself as Batman. You don't see yourself as Bruce Wayne at all. Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the better secret to know.
Yeah.
The secret, that you can't do anything to Bruce Wayne to hurt him.
No.
You can only do things to other people to hurt Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. You can destroy his house. I mean, maybe Alfred is his big point of weakness, but you can do far more damage to Batman. You can weaken him mentally. Because really, wouldn't the Joker's ultimate win be if he angered Batman to the point where Batman killed him?
Which, let me throw in, because this probably gets brought up more, it will get brought up as soon as this is said. The end of the Killing Joke.
Mm-hmm.
There's controversy because there are people claim that the ending is actually Batman killing the Joker.
Right.
Now, a lot of this comes from Grant Morrison making this claim that that's what happens. Problem is, one of two things is very true, or likely true. See, Grant Morrison and Alan Moore hate each other. They despise you. They are in a literal wizard's duel. I'm not joking about that. They both
Literal wizards duel.
I'm not joking about this. They both consider themselves to be wizards. I am genuinely telling you the truth. This is a real thing. You can look this up. They consider themselves to be wizards.
Wow.
And they're in a wizard's duel and they hate each other. And Alan Moore's gone on record and says, they asked him about Grant's work and he's like, oh, I love reading it. Usually twice. Once when I write it, once when he does.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And so I was like, one of two things is true. Grant said it because he knew it was true and it would piss Alan Moore off that everyone knew, or because he knows it's not true, but because Grant's such an expert, everyone's going to think he's right.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So my personal theory is that the ending isn't that Batman kills the Joker. It's a reset. My theory on that was that Batman has that momentary break where he's like, oh my God, this really is never going to end, is it? There's nothing I can do short of killing him. I'm never going to kill him. He got me. And that's what he's actually it's not the joke that he's laughing at. It's the realization of the sheer pointlessness of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
That's
then
checkmate.
but he knows if I stop, that's when he wins.
Yeah.
It's not that I know he's won. It's that as soon as I give up, as soon as I concede that he won, he really wins.
That's when you say checkmate, that's a perfect, there's only one villain who can put Batman in checkmate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Joker.
There it is. The best Batman villain, asked and answered. Thank you to Peter and Sherilyn. Simon, thanks for coming back on the show.
I love you guys and I love being on this
You're
show.
the best,
and I
man. This
love-
is so much
Yeah.
fun.
We have to have you on for a topic where the Joker cannot win, just to see how the Joker will win.
Yeah. We're gonna do best 70s song.
Oh, that's easy.
The Joker.
Yes. No. It's not the Joker.
What is the best 70s song?
Best 70s song is Sid Vicious's cover of My Way. I only say that because that's the only song I'll do karaoke. And it's because it's the only song you actually, not only can you sing badly and you're good at it, you have to sing it badly. If you sing it well, you're doing it wrong.
It's perfect. Well, where can folks find you?
Yeah.
You can find me on the Instagram and the Twitter at Gotch Style WWE. I might be changing those soon. I keep meaning to, but then it's always the same thing. Some 12-year-old goes, hey, you have to take WWE out of your name. You don't work there anymore. And I go, yeah, well, you're 12 and I do what I want, so I'm not going to change it. But,
That's your Joker, is that 12-year-old?
oh no, my Joker honestly is me.
You're your own Joker?
I am my own Joker. I think if anything, Batman and the Joker it's really about the way our brain, if you want to get heady on this, the way our brains interpret trauma. Because they both are people that suffer trauma and they're both people that react to it poorly, but in different ways. And I think it's the idea of the Joker is the bad part. Like, if we're looking at it in the confines of things that we do, like the Joker would be the guy who becomes addicted to drugs because of trauma, or becomes addicted to alcohol, or starts engaging in self-destructive behavior because of it. Batman's like the guy who something bad happens to him. He's trying to do the right thing, but sometimes bad things happen because he can't, you try to be a drug counselor, or a AA sponsor, but you don't necessarily have all the answers that this person needs because you're not a professional. You don't know what you're doing. You're trying, but
Yeah.
it becomes that whole deal where it's almost like the characters are these two. It's just trauma on paper. That's all they really are.
Wow.
Well,
My goodness,
now
that's
that we're
deep.
all our own
So's
Joker.
the Punisher.
That's, I'm,
Punisher, he's blue collar Batman, but that's another discussion.
yeah, that's for
I like
another
Blue Collar
time.
Batman.
But yeah, they can find you, Gotch Style WWE. And if people want to book you,
It's booking Simon at yahoo.com.
Great.
I do obviously wrestling events, signings, seminars. Believe it or not, I know a lot about professional wrestling. I'm actually very good at it.
I believe it.
You'd be surprised how many people I have to explain that to. No joke, because if we're going to talk about the trolling just randomly, I did a seminar. If you're not familiar with this guy, his name's Kevin Quinn. He actually was Christopher Daniels' Ring of Honor champion, phenomenal talent, been all around the world. He was Chris Daniels' tag partner. He's wrestled all over Mexico. He was a trainer at the Inoki Dojo. Guys like Rocky Romero, New Japan Pro Wrestling were actually trained in large part by Kevin. I've done some seminars for his students. He absolutely loves me because he's like, oh my God, this is someone who actually understands that the stuff I'm talking about. I was like, yeah, I was told I'd have a lot in common with him. And when I got hooked up with him, he's like, oh, this guy's great.
Which is pretty
I love
awesome.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so I do seminars as well. Photo ops. You want to put me in a movie? I'm not a good actor, but I'll let you hit me with stuff, throw me off things.
Perfect.
I'm like early Schwarzenegger. You give me a Conan role where I got 3 lines, I'm great.
Or if you go really early Schwarzenegger, then you just open your mouth with your thick Austrian accent, and they have an American replace your voice.
Oh yes. I've they actually released Hercules in New York with all his original audio.
Did they really?
Oh, yeah, on
so
DVD.
excited to hear that.
Oh,
I saw it where they showed it on TV randomly, and it was really awkward. But because I was used to the I don't understand voice.
Yeah.
Let me go see the horsey. Yeah. Young Schwarzenegger.
What was it? What was the line? He had some line about the cab. I can't remember when he's getting out of the cab, but the guy wants money. Like, your chariot carried the son of Zeus. You should be so honored.
You know what? I'm going to use that every time I get out of an Uber or a taxi now.
Yeah.
Hey, your chariot carried the son of Zeus. You should be honored. Well, thank you for being here for this episode. This was an absolute blast. This topic is covered, but there are many more topics to discuss. So please reach out to us on Twitter at We Got This Tweets, or check out the Maximum Fun subreddit, or
email us at wegotThisPodcast@gmail.com, or visit our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/We Got This Podcast. Thank you to producer Ken Plume, Kate McManus, who put together this giant list for us, graphic designer Uri Kelman, and QA engineer Jen Alba.
And thank you, of course, to our musicians, Jonathan Dinerstein and Mike Furman, for our score and theme song, respectively. And to you, our listeners, you are the Jokers to our Batman.
No, you're not.
Wait, what?
You're the Robins.
Oh, the Robins. Right.
Yeah.
Which one's the good guy?
Well, that's up for interpretation. Do you have another half
You
an
know
hour?
what?
Well, you know what?
The point is, we love you guys.
Yeah.
We don't ever want you to get beaten savagely with a crowbar by the Joker.
That's right.
You know what?
That's how much we care.
That, Simon, is... Can we put Christmas music underneath that?
Yes, we can.
Awesome.
Ken?
We have,
You did
2/3
it.
of us are Jewish. That's going to be a little awkward.
It's cool,
At least
guys.
2/3.
I have
We
enough
love-
Christmas
don't you
cheer for
love
everyone.
Christmas, though?
I do.
I do, too.
For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
For Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. Don't worry, everybody.
We got this.
We got this.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned.
Listener supported.